Hi everyone, it's a journey, and today's journey is featuring an author of the Leonardo Trait and a lifelong advocate for wildly creative, gloriously neurodivergent minds. Our guest helps people stop wrestling with the way they are wired and start building lives that actually fit. No hustle culture, no guilt, and preferably no hard pants. So I welcome Angie to the journey.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Now, obviously, I've just read that, and you've been talking about, the wildly creative, gloriously neurodivergent mind. Anyone who is neurodivergent knows that the mind can be so fast and it explores a lot of avenues, per se. So, can you just tell us how your journey started?
Well, I was always really creative, and my mind always worked in a million directions. When I was in kindergarten, I was 5 years old. I took all the paper off the shelf and put it on my desk, and my teacher told me I had to put it all back except one piece. And my best friend stood up. He's this scrawny little kid. He stood up and he said, "She's going to write a book." My teacher said, "Well, she'll have to write it one piece of paper at a time," which I did. I've written many books, but I always had this creative streak. I was writing stories at 5. I was drawing pictures like kids do, but I was a lot more intense with my writing. I wrote a whole play when I was like 10. Now, I'm not saying it was very good, but it had 3 acts and characters and, stage direction. And and that's not how the world around me worked. 10-year-olds weren't supposed to be writing plays. They were supposed to be playing baseball or playing with dolls or playing dress up. And I was always a little ahead of my time, and I was always way too much. I was always way too creative, way too energetic, way too everything.
Yeah. And, you know, I truly understand that because back in the day, neurodivergency wasn't a major, topic that many people was aware of. They always just assumed that you was being disruptive or you was misbehaving or you was just doing something to get attention. There's never a real definition of a term of being, for example, autistic or having ADHD. It was just like they are being bad.
Exactly. Even, as an adult, I wasn't diagnosed with autism until 2 years ago because it just never came up in my life that, hey, you might be autistic until just a few years ago. Um, my son was diagnosed as an adult, and even though we're basically the same person, it still took me years to realize that, hey, if he's autistic, maybe I'm autistic, and maybe this is not just a weird, different brain. And, I had written this book about profound creativity, but I hadn't realized that it was about neurodivergence. And so I've recently rewritten the Leonardo Trait to talk about neurodivergent creativity. But I think so many people go through their lives and they think, oh, I'm just different. I'm weird. There's something wrong with me. I'm broken. And what I learned through my journey of being diagnosed is I'm not broken. I'm not weird. There are so many people like me. And it was just a real eye opener and a re- very much a relief to learn that I was autistic.
Yeah, I truly get that. my partner very recently, she's 10 years younger than me, but she was recently diagnosed with autism. The end of the scale, which it shows the creativity scale, and she's always questioned herself. Why was she different? Why are people treating me differently? Why am I feeling different than others? But it didn't stop her from being creative, but then she often got told she was different. Now, when she found out she was autistic, she felt a weight off her because she finally felt free to be herself, to say, I finally accept who I am now because I am neurodivergent.
Exactly. My family has always accepted me and my friends because they love me for who I am. But in other settings, I often feel like I'm not really fitting in. I'm not elegant and legible is a good word. I'm not legible. I'm not like other people. And now I'm able to say, oh, that's because I'm autistic. And when people hear that, they say, oh, yeah, of course. We understand that you're different because you're autistic. And we shouldn't need this label for people to accept us, but we kind of really do need it sometimes.
Mm. Yeah, like I used to go to this church, which, I'm not doubting this church at all because they are their own belief and it still is my belief in that church. But when the old pastor got pushed to want, left his role and the new pastor came in, it was told to him, from my perspective, David is autistic. And so he spoke to me and he said, David, how do you want me to treat you? David as David with autism or David as David? And I felt like that was just because they were told that the stigma was on me that I was autistic. I should be David as autistic David. And I said, I wanted to be David as David. He said, okay, if you want to be David as David, we treat you as a proper person. And I'm like, why not treat me as a proper person even if I'm David autistic?
Right. Everyone is a proper person. We're all human and everyone is different. No one really has it all together. I mean, autistic people, I think we look at neurotypical people sometimes and we think, I should be like that. I'm a broken neurotypical, but we're not broken anything. We
No.
are perfect the way we are, just like everyone else is perfect the way they are. I mean, no one has it together completely. No one is no one is exactly the way they look on the outside. Everyone's going through something, everyone's dealing with something, everyone's got their stuff, and our stuff just happens to be autism, but it doesn't make us lesser or you know, not a proper person, like you said.
And I got the t-shirt. No, I don't have it on today, but I've got a t-shirt what I bought a few years ago saying everyone is different. And that is in awareness of autism. So,
Exactly.
so going into the way autism defined you when you got diagnosed, did you ever find it was more stressful understanding because you was late diagnosed, or did you find it was a big weight and relief off your mind to know you was autistic?
It was such a relief to me. It explained everything. And even though I had thought for a couple of years that I might be autistic, and I had told people that I thought I was autistic, knowing for sure just changed my world. And I don't know that it does that for everyone, but for me, it just made everything make sense. And it took off this sense of I should be able to at least function sometimes like other people. I just fully embraced being autistic. I researched more about autism. I learned more about how my brain works. I just really got into this. I'm autistic and this is how my brain works. And I pretty much told everyone in my life, hey, I'm autistic. I need you to be a little more clear with me. I've already told you I need you to be more clear, but it's because I'm autistic. It's not because I'm not understanding what you're saying. I just don't get subtlety and I'm not good at social cues. And all this is because I'm autistic. And when you add that because I'm autistic, people go, oh, yeah, okay, of course. I understand that you need me to be more clear, that you don't pick up on social cues. I think neurodivergence is becoming more well known, and a lot of people are more accepting that, oh, I understand, and I can work with you on that.
Yeah, it's like you got the two ends of, like I said earlier, the, two ends of the scale. You got the term as they used to address it as Asperger's, then you got the severe autism. So you got the two sides of the spectrum. And many people always assume everyone who's autistic is in the extreme. They don't think about the Asperger's, but I got to remember now Asperger's is not Asperger's, it's known as ASD. But the fact is, that is the side that is highly functioning. And it's okay to be highly functioning whilst being in the middle to say, I'm autistic, but I'm still me. Don't treat me like I'm the severe.
Yeah, certainly there are people who are severely autistic and have very serious difficulties in life, and that's we need to remember that autism is not just that. It's also not just really high functioning people who can go out in the world and are quirky, but for the people who can go out in the world and are quirky, it really matters that we're treated equitably, that we're treated like human beings who are a little different than maybe other human beings, but not, we don't want to be treated equally. We want to be treated fairly.
Mm. Yeah, and it is a true saying that everyone should be treated fairly and treated with respect, per se.
Yeah, and just treat us like people.
Yeah, so going into the present, and you said about writing the book. How did you find the book was when you finally got to write about this book? Was it like you poured out like you did with all the paper? Was it everything just in one go, or did you just take your time and understand it before writing it?
It was really all in one go. This is the fourth edition of this book, and the first three editions were very much a manual for creative people to live in a society that doesn't really work for them. And then when I realized I was autistic, I thought that's not the book this needs to be. So I basically threw out everything. Of course, I kept it in my head, but I threw out everything and started over and wrote a manifesto for neurodivergent creative people on being more of who they are, which I did address in the first three editions. But this book is basically just this is who you are, and this is how we're going to get through this life being who we are and thriving.
Yeah. So have you ever experienced the burnout photo autism where you feel like, "Hmm," and you really felt less energy, where you felt like, I don't want to be doing anything? Do you feel like you shut off from the outside world at times?
Oh, yes, definitely. And burnout is a real problem for autistic people because we basically have two speeds, fast and stop. And we just go and go, and eventually we are going to burn out if we don't find a way, and sometimes we can't find a way to slow down a little bit. And burnout is definitely a thing. Um, I talk a lot about burnout because it's so important that people realize that this is something that happens and it's not a personal failure. It doesn't mean you're not strong enough or smart enough or good enough. It means that your brain and your body have been going way too fast for way too long. And the best way that I have found to deal with burnout is to just get as much rest and as much distance as possible and just be very careful with your brain and your body. And a lot of people in burnout look like they're depressed or like they're being lazy, and really they just can't do anymore right now.
Mm.
And I think it's really important that neurodivergent people realize burnout is part of our lives, and I think it is possible to slow down some and maybe keep it from being so serious, but we are going to burn out. It's going to happen. And the thing is that it's not a personal failing. We rest, we come back, we get back in the groove. And maybe next time it's a little less, it's a little shorter, and maybe we can, figure out our rhythm. But burnout is nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, and it's okay to ask for help. That is a key thing as well. It's okay to always ask for help. Don't feel like you're being a burden to someone because you want to ask for help.
Oh, absolutely. It took me well into adulthood before I realized it was okay to say, hey, I need some help with this, or hey, I can't do all of this myself. Can you please help me with this? Or I'm in burnout and I really just need some compassion. I need you to understand that this is not me being lazy. This is really a physiological condition.
Yeah. So what inspired your book? Obviously, you call it the Leonardo Trait. Can you tell us what inspired your writing in the book?
Sure. In 2006, I was doing some reading on creativity, and I read a couple of books that I thought were going to be about the kind of creativity I have. And they sort of were, but they really weren't quite there. And I was talking to my best friend one night about these books. I was visiting her. And I said, one of the books suggested having a file cabinet for each project you're working on. I said, I would need a condominium just to store all my file cabinets. And the other book came a little closer. It talked about, I think it was called The Renaissance Soul, and it talked about multiple passions and multiple projects, and it referred to people like who are like that as Ben Franklin's. And I was telling my friend, and I said, neither of these books is really about me. They're not quite there. And my friend's daughter said, what would you call people like you? And I said, Leonardo's. This just came up into my head. I said, Leonardo's. I think there's a trait that we all have, or a set of traits that make us Leonardo's. And I started talking about this theory, and my friend said, you have to write that book now. And so I've been writing this book for 20 years, and I think I finally got what I really needed to say out.
So this your book is available, I assume, on Amazon and anywhere else?
It's available for pre-order. It's coming out January 26th. Um, and it's available anywhere you buy books.
Okay, so I'll make sure I'll find a link and put the link in the description, so people can buy it potentially. So going into the future, obviously now you know you're autistic, you know your son's got autism. What words would you say to people on their journey of self-discovery, of understanding about autism or being diagnosed in later life? What would you say to those people who are questioning, why me? What shall I do? What shall I feel like? What would you tell them to be inspired?
I think that being autistic actually, as a high functioning autistic person who is very creative and very in intellectual, I would say, very curious, intellectually curious, I wouldn't have my life any other way. I mean, there, I think, is a process where you think, oh, I'm autistic, and maybe you're a little down about that. But I think we have the best brains of any human. We are intelligent, we're curious, we are interesting, we're funny, we're creative. And I think just embracing that part of ourselves and realizing that we are not weird or broken, that we are incredibly brilliant and different in the best way. I think that's what I would say to people.
I love that a lot. And I just like to say, Angie, thank you for sharing your journey with us today. I know interviews can be stressful as well at times, so I'm just trying to be mindful of that as well. But I applaud you for sharing your journey about neurodivergency, sharing your story about autism, just showing how passionate you are because you do get people on social media talking about neurodivergency, but you don't always get people talking about it in interviews because they often, like I've said before, they often get misrepresented. They often feel like there's pressure on them and they end up feeling very closed off and shut down easily. But I feel like you've told the story wholeheartedly, and I really believe your book will be a big success for you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Hi everyone! I am Ammie Harrison, poet and author, and I want to shine a spotlight on something truly special. My books! Yes, all of them. If you're someone who loves poetry that leaves a mark, messages that stay with you, and books that actually mean something, then you're going to want to pay attention. My books are packed with impact. Every page, every chapter, every story is crafted with heart, purpose, and that little spark that stays with you long after you put it down. And the best part? They're available right now on Amazon Kindle. Super easy to grab, super worth a read. Whether you're looking for inspiration, connection, or just a powerful poem to claw into, these books deliver exactly what you need. So go ahead, click the link, check them out, and see for yourself why my books are making marks. Trust me, you're going to want these in your digital library. Meow at you later, or 2026 may bring you more surprises, like this one. I'm sad. I'm mad. I'm pissed. I'm psycho. I go psycho. Rip out your brains. Ooh, they taste so yummy, like gourmet chicken nuggies. Bye. The Journey podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own path. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com.